dragon claw, wing and scale. Come now, let's examine a tale of the greatest beast ever considered. Another episode of Big Flying Lizards.
We're back.
We're back.
It's been a whole week.
I literally came with the same outfit, so they'll think that it hasn't been a week.
Yeah, Chase, it's been a week.
I know it's been a week, but I am a conspirer.
I love it. I love it. Well, it's been a week, and speaking of playing things off, and we get to start to see some real playing things off characters in these episodes.
Boy, do we.
We get to see two of the most conniving, two of the most backstabbing little hoes that we've ever seen. Littlefinger and Varys.
Yeah, characters you never really hate or love either way, and it's you end up hating one a little more than the other for sure.
Yeah, and it's just fireworks when they're on.
Yeah, it really is. Those motherfuckers are crazy intentions.
We'll talk about it later on once we get to seasons 6 and 7. But people were saying that Game of Thrones was really just a game between Littlefinger and Varys. And I wish they would have played into that a little bit more, because there was a lot of opportunities to do that. And
yeah, it's the way that they operated and avoided consequences
for so long.
I mean, yeah, the entire time. The interesting thing with them is their play on power, where nothing they do is necessarily for more power until it is. They have very interesting characters.
They really are. And they also they're so well brought to life from how they are in the books. They might be the most accurate from the books, with the exception of Varys. Varys is in the show, he's like, oh, I'm doing it for the people. I'm doing it for the people. I don't think Varys is doing it for the people in the books. And there's so many conspiracies. But before we get into those conspiracies, welcome to Big Flying Lizards, a dragon movie and television podcast. I am your host, Bryce Wilson. Bringing back.
Not once.
Not once.
So nice. Do it twice.
Exactly.
Hang out with Bryce.
Whoa. Are you rapping over there?
I might be.
Chayce Hernandez, everybody.
We're back again.
Back again. Talking about episodes 3 and 4 of A Game of Thrones. And I should have done this last week on the episode, but I actually have this chart here indicating which chapters of the books are in which episodes. So in episodes 1 and 2, which 1 is Winter is Coming and 2 The King's Road, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 chapters that are dedicated to those 2 episodes. 14.
Whoa!
Yeah.
That's legal.
That's legal. That is legal. And this week, for episodes 3 and 4, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and a little bit of 15 chapters.
Can't imagine what goes into them making those decisions.
I don't know either, because there's about, I think, and I know I posted it in the Discord, so we could probably have somebody tell us in the comments section, but we have about 73 chapters in the first book. So it's a couple.
Yeah, for 4 episodes.
Yeah.
Being at 30.
Now, I know in the introduction, I sort of already showed my hand, but I think this is really where it really started to sell me in the show, because this is where, yes, there's a lot of people who think people come to Game of Thrones for the dragons. They come for the armor. They come for the sword fighting, which all of that is awesome. All of that is nice. But Game of Thrones is about the politics. It's about the backstabbing. It's about the plotting. It's about the House of Cards. Like, I don't know how many of you watched the Kevin Spacey show House of Cards. First 2 seasons, amazing, spectacular. Do not watch season 3 or on. Like, do not need to, but it's so good. I have it on Blu-ray, thanks to Austin. So, shout out to Austin.
Shout out Austin. Shout out.
But because House of Cards is so good because of all the politicking and dark shadow figures that are going on and moving. And that's really what we start to get seeing here. And I know I joked around saying that Varys and Littlefinger are so like what they are in the books. The one character who was butchered by the show, absolutely butchered, is Robert's brother Renly.
Yeah.
Because he is described as this muscular, tall, robust, long, black-haired man. And he's just a twink. He looks like a bartender at a gay bar. Like,
yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. He looks like he plays ultimate frisbee a little too seriously.
He's in a couple leagues.
A couple leagues. No, absolutely agree.
And he doesn't really seem to be a player.
No, and that's the issue with his character, to be honest, is that once again, it just was like they just rushed.
Yes. Like the only players that you really see playing the game in this first season, Ned's not even really playing the game. Like he's being the detective. That's all he's doing. He's not playing the game. He's just being a detective.
He's almost your source to figuring out what the game is.
Yes.
He's like your ultimate, like, oh, but like, no, it's Cersei. You just have the whole, that whole family is playing it. And then,
yes,
realistically, that's kind of it. You really get those guys. You get Daenerys, you get Littlefinger, and you just start to see that all kind of come together for the mess that it is.
Yes. And in these episodes, you're really especially starting to see and also, again, we've watched this through. We know how it ends, but it's just so incredible to see how stupid Ned and Catelyn are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're just sort of diving in. So I think it's only fair that we do our first chapter.
I think so. I think we hop right in.
All right, chapter 1, Whispers and Warnings. Ned attends his first small council meeting and learns that the realm is deep in debt and poorly governed. Catelyn travels in secret to King's Landing to warn Ned about the Lannisters' involvement of Bran's fall and the assassination attempt. She's intercepted by Peter Littlefinger, Baelish, her manipulative childhood friend and council member. Bran awakens, but is told that he will never walk again. He still cannot recall the fall. Jon struggles to adjust to life on the wall, clashing with the harsh realities of the Night's Watch. Once elite watch, it's now mainly made up of criminals, outcasts who are unimpressed with Jon's noble birth. Lord Commander Mormont asks Tyrion to convince King Robert to send more men to the wall. As Tyrion prepares to leave, Jon begins to understand the burden and honor of being a man of the Night's Watch. In Essos, Daenerys, now pregnant with Khal Drogo's child, defies Viserys and asserts her independence, threatening his life if he strikes her again. In King's Landing, Arya begins secret sword training with her new instructor, Syrio Forel. I really like everything that's going on here. I love seeing Jon's realization that the Night's Watch is not really a noble group. I really enjoy Catelyn being like, you can almost see Catelyn being poisoned by Littlefinger and just being set up. Like, Littlefinger is just as much of a spider as Varys is, because he's over there just spinning his web around people and they don't even realize that they're getting wrapped up in his lies, getting wrapped up in his like manipulations until it's too late. And then like again, like you see Daenerys start to defy her brother in these episodes, and it just feels a little forced.
Yeah, that whole line really does not feel like a natural occurring thing, and that comes down to the acting that we've mentioned before. But I think you're, saying, going back to what you said, I really do think these are the episodes that get their claws in people, because shit starts happening and you're just thrust into the politics of it all, into the mess of it all. And so you really start to see, they don't really explain a lot of characters. And so you see Littlefinger and you see Daenerys and you just have no idea. And you're just watching from afar. And I think it's such an interesting, these episodes through the first season are so interesting because you haven't had your heart broken yet. And so you really don't know exactly what you're cheering for, you just have no idea.
Yeah.
And I think that feeling that you have of just being kind of lost on the plot and some of the vagueness that comes with them just not having the book show up as much is so fucking interesting. It lends itself to like some very interesting moments that happen with Catelyn and like Littlefinger, and just like these moments where you're like, how you don't realize how keen and like conniving this really is. And these episodes, you're just kind of discovering that.
So I know I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but just like every 18-year-old boy at one point, I got really obsessed with learning about World War II. Like World War II is just a really fascinating time to learn about. Also, I think there, like, again, like I know it's really problematic and all of that sort of stuff, but I was really just curious on how Germany became what it was, because like I still don't think the vast majority of people realize that Germany essentially was like an evil empire. Like their military was next to none. Were beyond advanced. The size of their military was insane, and they literally were just two battles away from taking over the entire world. And I don't think people realize how close we avoided that. And I just find it so fascinating, like, one, to learn about how it got to there, and two, like, what was going on behind the scenes. And there's this one particular documentary, I think it's called Hitler Rise of Evil or something like that. And it's talking about all of the leadership behind the scenes and what they were doing. And it's fascinating to learn because I was just watching how everyone was trying to be Hitler's guy. They were all trying to be like his right hand, and Hitler even set up his government to like have it so they were battling it out with each other and trying to earn his favor, because he was just that much of an egomaniac and wanted to see like, okay, who's most loyal to me. And it was just so crazy to see like how all these people were backstabbing and like trying to just throw people under the bus. And I watched this back when I really wasn't that involved with politics in general. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. This never happens in politics. Like, we're
What up with that? What up with that?
I mean, even like, yes, I know I'm alluding that we see this in our very day and age here, but even in this fictional story and show where this is a quote unquote well run kingdom, you're seeing it still be the case. Like, Robert is a bad king. Robert, like in the books, it talks about it a lot more. All Robert, and you even see it in the show, all Robert wants to do is eat, drink, and fuck. Like, that's all he wants to do. He doesn't want to rule. And I think in the books, it doesn't say this in the show, and I'm actually sad that they don't do this. But in the books, Robert says, I would have thought about giving up the throne and going over to Essos and just being like a sword for hire and just doing that. And the only reason he doesn't do that is he doesn't trust his son to be king. And with Cersei, like, and he's like, I know I'm doing a shit job, but I know as hell I'm doing a better job than those two running the kingdom. And you really get the sense that that's the case of like, Cersei is trying to establish as much dominance as she can without overstepping. But at the same time, other people are trying to like dig in and assert dominance, because there is such a vacuum left open where Robert doesn't want to rule, but the kingdom still has to run, and Ned has to deal with the consequences of that.
Yeah, and I think this is an interesting thing that I actually pick up from like the bit I was reading that wasn't the books, or that was from the books. I don't know that they do a good job in the show showing how terrified of everybody was of Robert.
Yes.
Like, he was a war. There's a reason he got away with this. There's a reason no one tried to kill him.
Yes.
And I think that that's kind of a big like gap, because they just make him this drunk, which he is. But like, you know, even Jaime does not want to mess with Robert.
Yes.
And so I think that's a really big opportunity missed for just how absolutely like brutal of a war. It's what he is. That's why he's bored. He's a warrior. He's not a leader.
Yes. Like, there's a particular scene in the book that just defies to me like exactly what it's like. Robert is drunk at a feast and Jaime is like trying to calm him down, and Robert literally just like sidearms and sends Jaime flying, and he's like, ha, I'm drunk and I'm fat and I'm still leveling you and you're in full plate armor. And like, I feel like that's exactly what it is. Like, Robert was meant for war. Like, he was meant to be a warrior. He never wanted to become king. And the show actually does a really bad job at talking about this. But, excuse me, the reason that Robert became king is not like, Ned technically could have become king if he really wanted to, but he didn't want to. The reason why Robert became king is the Baratheon line has some tied lineage with the Targaryens.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, you have the royal dragon blood, so you're going to be in line. And now the Baratheons are technically the royal family. It's not because they were the conquerors. It was, but it wasn't. Like,
Yeah, it always comes back down to the Targaryens.
yes, always come back to dragons
Every time. Yeah, absolutely. I just think that's such a missed opportunity in the show, because it would have been. I think that they really moved past a lot of that lore there between him and Ned, and we get glimpses of it later in the show.
Yes,
but never really think about Robert. Robert really is just his character really is just a stepping in the show, anyways, a stepping block for Cersei, Joffrey, and Ned. It's really just like more of a capitalizing point,
yes,
rather than like, oh no, there's this is a great. This is how some people will be looking up like power rankings like Dragon Ball Goku versus like Naruto.
yes.
I be doing that for Game of Thrones. I'm like, all right. And so it's like, realistically, like who's winning, Robert or the Mountain?
There's
the lore, I think, says Robert, right?
The lore says Robert, because the Mountain. Okay, I'm so happy you brought this up, because I can talk. This could be the entire podcast here.
Gee.
Because the Mountain in the books, all he is strong. He's slow, he's stupid, and he's like, I think he's just
huge.
He's huge. That's the only advantage that he has. Robert was strong, he was fast, he's intelligent as like a strategist. He only ever lost, I think, one, maybe two battles. So like, he's a great commander. I think he takes the Mountain 9 times out of 10. Like,
I think the Mountain gets overhyped because, not alluding to some future stuff that happens, but he loses.
Yeah.
And so he really like the Mountain's character. You wonder who got overplayed in the show, but also there's a lot of his story that doesn't get brought into the show.
Let's hear it.
Well, it's in the future part of the I don't want to get too far ahead of us.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff with his like where he has no character development. You really have like 3 versions of him, and it's just like nah, and they don't explain why or anything. And
is it a particular brother?
It might be.
Oh,
it just might be. But yeah, and so I think that's just one of those really missed opportunities of like why Robert was able to act this way, and why, once again, Cersei, Tywin, like no one dared mess, and they also, but like it kind of worked out in their favor because they got a rule with the fear of him, but they kind of do everything underneath.
Well, and just tying back to what's going on here, they were playing the long game. The Lannisters were doing the long game. Tywin married off Cersei to Robert. They started giving loans to Robert because I think they said that they were like 3 million gold in debt to the Lannisters. So like, it doesn't say this in the book. I mean, it doesn't say this in the show, but in the book, they're like, the Lannisters eventually won't need to like take the throne by force. They can just claim it in interest because they're in so much debt to the Lannisters. And so it's just so fascinating to see how the Lannisters are just playing this like 4D chess to get to power, and they're really setting themselves up. But like you're saying, they know that they could not go head to head in a war with Robert because Robert, well, something that I think, and again, I love the actor that they do. Robert is so much more charismatic in the books. Like people like, and they talk about this often, that Robert had this ability to make his enemies his friends. Like he would like defeat other lords in battle, and rather than execute them, he'd be like, hey, let's have a drink, let's talk this out, and by the end of the night they're best friends. I wish we would have seen more of that Robert, just somebody who's, yes, a drunk, but at the same time, like he's the fun uncle.
I think there's a big opportunity. We've talked about some of that in the show. If they've taken more time, this would have been a great time to throw some just absolutely like flashbacks.
Yes.
This would have been a great time for that. And I think the show, it would have done, I can say this, I think it would have been better in retrospect, but at the time, I think the speed they took caught everybody's attention.
Yes.
But some flashbacks would have been amazing to see the war, to see why they have a bond, all of the things, right? Like all of that together, I think would have added a lot of depth to some characters in kind of a depthless part of the story, in the plot and overall storyline of that show.
2 notes on that, both of which I do agree. I think there needed to be flashbacks. But first of all, they want to do a Robert's Rebellion show. Like that's coming down in the works. Like that.
I don't know. I feel like it could be, but I feel like the way that Game of Thrones ended, they are not touching that. They are going real far. We got House of Dragon.
Well, so what they're doing, yes, they're doing House of the Dragon. They're doing Night of the Seven Kingdoms. They just got approval for an Aegon's Conquest show. But I have a feeling that in the next 5 to 10 years, we'll get an announcement that Robert's Rebellion is going to be a show.
Long enough for everyone to have forgotten.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I can get behind that.
The second point, it just really leans into that this needed to be an anime. Because what is anime notorious for? Flashbacks. Like lore episodes. Like
I hate how right you are about that. You're so right.
Like I know, and again, I've seen the comments. I've seen you guys saying that you love the realism, you love what they're doing. But if you read George R.R. Martin's writing, it was meant to be an anime. It was not meant to be a live action. With like even how crazy the Lannister troops, they all wear helmets that are in the shape of lion heads. And also like the Hound, he has that wolf hound helmet that we see in the first couple episodes, and it looks stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Like it looks stupid. But in the books, everyone says that it's like it looks exactly like a wolf and it's terrified, and there's like you can see the whiskers on it, you can see the black, and it's like I could just imagine an anime knight coming in like with that helmet on. They'd even be a little bit of like black smoke coming off of them, and like it look epic. And
I can't say you're wrong.
You just don't want to say I'm right.
It's like Demon Slayer animators, lock them in a fucking room,
tell them they can't see their children for 6 years unless they get this done.
Yep. And I could see it.
They'd cook.
I wish it would happen.
The only hope that here's the thing. It's only like a 5% chance, but it's still a 5% chance. I know George R.R. Martin loves anime.
It's never. There's not a 5%. Is way too high.
There's still a 5% chance.
No, not in the next 20 years.
Well, the thing is, I'm convinced George. Here's the thing: I could see it because George hates how the story ended as well. He hates Dave and Dave. He hates them. He has like all but said that he hates them because he has taken his story, and in his eyes, they just shat all over it and like wrote in the gunk of it. What happened there?
When do you think he started feeling that way? I didn't follow any of this close enough. Was it the entire time they were recording the show, or just after?
No. I think he really started feeling this way. I think halfway through season 7.
That's fair.
Because like season 5, you're like, okay, like, yeah, you don't have all the details right now, so you have to work with what you've got. Season 6, you're like, okay, like you guys are sort of fucking with my baby here, but like the ending.
You know what's crazy? I think season 7 is one of the best seasons of television I've ever watched.
Oh, really?
I will say that.
It has one of my favorite fight episodes.
Yes, it has one of the best fight episodes of all time. I will say, I think the reason I think it's so good is every single episode is packed with meaningful story. Now, having said that, I do wish they had stretched it out. I think season 7 could have been 2 seasons, 3, 2.5. Season 8 should have been 2, at least 3.
Well, they also really abused the fast travel feature in season 7 and season 8. So
yeah, you're not. The fast travel really did do them some justice.
You're like, wow, he just ran 30 miles in the span of 10 minutes. That guy is crazy.
Yeah, there's great points made there. Like they crossed some oceans, crossed some seas.
Daenerys flies across the continent in a day. Like not even a day. Like that we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yes, we are. Because we just hate it so much.
We just hate it.
Anyways, coming back.
Chapter 2, Broken Things and Bloodlines. On his way back to King's Landing, Tyrion stops at Winterfell to give the Starks a custom saddle design that can help Bran ride again. Ned continues to investigate Jon Arryn's death and uncovers clues involving King Robert's bastards. He discovers Gendry, a skilled blacksmith, as one of Robert's illegitimate children. King Robert hosted a lavish tournament in Ned's honor, which Ned criticized as wasteful amid the kingdom's financial crisis. Jon protects a new recruit, Samwell Tarly, from abuse of his fellow Night's Watch members and helps him find a place among them. Daenerys grows stronger in her role as Khaleesi, while Viserys becomes increasingly bitter and unstable. Sansa dreams of a future as queen, but still clinging to a romantic ideal, while Arya begins to shape her own destiny. At a roadside inn, Catelyn unexpectedly encounters Tyrion. She calls upon loyal bannermen from House Tully and has Tyrion arrested for conspiring in Bran's attempted murder. Now, I want to just go through this conspiracy. I really want this conspiracy to be true, but I don't know if it's going to be. George very historically loves using either myths and legends in his writing to depict what's going on, or just taking historical events and putting them in. Now, what does Gendry sound like to you? Child that is rejected by his parents, who's a blacksmith, whose parents hate each other, one of his parents being the king of kings and the other being the queen of beauty, still makes a name for himself and becomes a big deal later down the road. The answer is Hephaestus in Greek mythology. Hephaestus was rejected by his parents, but here's the thing. I think that Cersei is Gendry's mother, because Gendry says that his mother had blonde hair. And in the show, Cersei talks about how she had a son, but it died. And in the books, Ned asks Cersei, like, how did you not ever have any children with Robert? And she said, oh, I made sure to, she took the plan B essentially. But then she was like, there was one time, but I made sure that I aborted that little bitch over there. But I think that she actually had the child and claimed that the child died at birth, but then just got rid of the child because she didn't want to have a child with Robert. Being Gendry, and Gendry being this figure that's just growing up in King's Landing, not knowing who his father is just honing his skills, getting strong, becoming a smith over here, and eventually, potentially, could take to the throne. Now, in the sense of the show, not what happened.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I will say his character, once again, wasted.
Yes.
But that's an interesting conspiracy. That's not that far out there.
No, it really isn't. I feel like it's...
Especially with the fast travel. It's just fast birth.
Exactly. Like, I feel like, especially with what they did in the show, like, having that be a twist, like, is not that far off. Of like,
not at all. I don't think that's far off. I think it's weird to say it's far off with where the show goes.
Yeah, like, they legitimize him at the end of the show anyways. Like, why not just make it so he was legitimate all along? Like, still, like, okay, never... We're getting ahead. I do also feel like Ned's investigation is boring. Like, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, Ned's character is boring.
Yeah.
Ned's character, it just, him and that damn honor.
Well, again, it's not necessarily Sean. Well, I keep going back and forth. Like, I love Sean Bean. Like, I think he's a great actor. I just also don't know if he was the right person for this role, because like I think they needed to have somebody who was a little bit more intimidating, a little bit like and they talk about this a little bit in the show. Ned was never supposed to be the Lord. He was always going to be like a general for his brother. So I think they needed to have somebody who gave off more soldier vibes than Lord vibes. Because he always is just giving Lord vibes, who's just...
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said there. I think a lot of that's like, is that Lord vibes because that's how we're introduced to him? Or, you know, is that what he became? It's so hard when you're only talking about episode 3 and 4. But, yeah, I could totally get what you're saying. I think a lot of it early on was a mixture of bad writing. And once again, 15 chapters to one episode. And so you gotta imagine how much
You're cramming.
for one actor, right? Like, how do you convey that much stuff in one person at one time? You really don't. You really kind of pick two or one thing. And really, at that time, you're really picking one thing. And I really feel like that's what they did with like each character, right? They put them in like three things, three traits, and we're like, hey, Robert, you're a drunk, you like fucking, and you like fighting. And
Yes.
Ned, it's just honor. I think it's a good time to bring up an interesting thing about these two episodes,
Let's hear it.
which is they early on in the show, Cersei and Jaime's relationship is it's always spotty, but they do interesting ways to show it without ever actually showing it. And they do a really interesting storytelling with that.
Yes. And here's where I give them credit, where I do wish we would have gotten how their relationship actually is in the books, where it's really one-sided, where Jaime loves Cersei and Cersei's more just using Jaime. But like in the show, I really like how they portray this incestual sibling relationship in the sense
You're
that
going to jail.
I mean, I really like it in the sense that they're portraying Jaime and Cersei as like, hey, we have a duty to our family. We have a duty to, I don't even want to say the realm, but just like to the Lannister family. But they also are like, we're not afraid of like who we are. So it's just interesting because in the books it's a lot more of like hiding it, a lot more. While in this they are a little, I don't want to say flaunting it, but like no one's really surprised.
Yeah, no, that's a common thing that everyone had kind of known about it.
Like the only two people that didn't know was Robert and Ned.
Yeah, I think I would hate to say I really feel like Robert knew. I don't think he cared. Like, I just don't think he was. I think he knew what she was. He knew the situation. I think that's one thing. Once again, I think his character just like we're not at that chapter yet of him, but I feel like his demise almost. Yes, he was. Whatever. It almost seems like he was waiting for someone to kill him.
Yes, I completely agree with that. The only pushback that I will provide for what you were saying there is in the books, they weren't fucking.
No,
like
they weren't in the show either.
They weren't in the show either. And it was common knowledge that Renly wanted Robert to marry Marjorie Tyrell. And there was this whole plot for him to like force him to fall in love with Marjorie Tyrell. And then they were going to divorce Cersei off because if the Lannisters tried to rise up against him, like they'd be able to just crush the Lannisters at that point because the Tyrells were the second wealthiest family. And then the Baratheons had the largest army. Like it was a whole thing. And it's just fascinating to me because like I agree in the show, it makes more sense that Robert's like, I know, like I'm doing what I do, you do what you do. But in the books, if Robert knew, he's like, yeah, cut her head off. Like, because then he'd have like, he wouldn't even have to go through the ordeal of like, hey,
that's what I'm saying. And the books are so much more barbaric.
Yes. But, and then going back to just what we talked about last week, they are more barbaric, but then they'll throw in these instances of like assault scenes that they're like for no reason. Like there's other barbaric things going on and you're choosing to go completely out of left field.
Well, that's what kind of makes this show so interesting is it's such because it's fantasy, there is no, but it feels old timey. They get away with like old timey things like assault and things like that. But at the same time, it's like they're advanced. Like, it's such an interesting place and time that they put this show in.
Well, as an like the podcast knows, but as I'm writing as a hobby, I really struggle because I want to try to balance having almost modern things available to people through magic, but at the same time, like I still want to have that fantasy vibe. So it's running that line of like, okay, how far am I able to push things and have things that are a modern feel in a fantasy story? And I think Game of Thrones does a great way of at least justifying what's going on there. Like again, we haven't brought in wildfire yet, but like wildfire is like a nuke. Like,
Yeah, well, that's a great point. But this is a good question. What is there a fantasy world novel at all that is purely just like technology?
well, I mean,
Like think Ghost in a Shell, but fantasy.
well, that's just sci-fi at that point.
That's what I'm
isn't it?
saying. So like, what's that line? That's such an interesting question to me.
Well, so there's a really good book that's getting adapted into a show called Red Rising. And it's funny because I'm sure you've noticed this, especially when you watch Dune. Like, it's hilarious to watch that societies get so advanced, even in Star Wars, like societies get so advanced that the most sophisticated, amazing weapon ends up just being a sword. And I laugh about it, but even if you think about it in the military, all of the special forces have like they get knife training. Like they all, like, you have the ability to have drones, you have the ability to have guns, but at the end of the day, it's still coming down to like hand-to-hand combat, like working with a blade. And like, it's just fascinating to see that, like, almost the joke of like, you just go get so technologically advanced that it's full circle that you're coming back with swords and shields.
I think yeah, at some point definitely. It's just an interesting, I think, line for a lot of storytellers in fantasy because it's like it's super hard to write and then pick a day and age of technology advancement, medical advancement, but also it's just like we're only referring to one time, so like really referring to like a make believe time or place is super difficult, and so you're basically compensating for like what would be technology in such odd ways, which is the fun of it all.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. But I totally agree with you. It's kind of funny watching everything kind of come full circle. But I think that's also where fantasy lives. Is it's like, oh yeah, like dragons, castles, kings and queens, but fire that explodes. It's almost like all the myths you hear of like all it's like every single thing I hear about like what's not where MLMs like do really well is in fantasy.
Yeah.
Multi-level marketing is just fantasy if you really think about it.
It's lore.
Things before they worked really well. This will cure you, ma'am.
Magic. What is MLM going to stand for? Magic, love, and money.
Yeah, yeah. I think that might be it. But anyways, come back to these two episodes, these two chapters. What do we got next?
Okay, Chapter 3. Tensions of Thrones. Ned starts to see the deeper rot within the capital's politics and the consequences of Robert's neglect as king. Tyrion's arrest sparks a dangerous chain of events, placing House Stark and House Lannister on a collision course. The tension between Viserys and Daenerys reaches a breaking point, symbolizing a power shift within House Targaryen. At the Wall, Jon's growth is evident as he begins to act as a leader, defending those weaker than himself. The Stark children continue on their diverging path, Sansa towards court and Arya towards independence and survival. Secrets, both political and personal, continue to surface, setting the stage for a deeper conflicts to come. It is interesting to see because in, I believe, episode 4, there's a conversation that never came up during the books. And I low key, this comes back to the conversation we had last time about how I do think there's a time and place to make changes. And I think this was a time and place that was actually really great. And it's the conversation where the tournament's going on, Ned's in his office, and the queen comes in and she's like, hey, let's put everything to the side that we went on the road. That was some nasty business. Let's call a truce. Like, it's a lot better for us to work together than it is for us to be at each other's throat, because she knows that he's trying to uncover everything that's going on. And there's just like she's trying to play mind games with Ned, but Ned's over here like, I don't play mind games.
Yeah, that's the thing. He really never fell for any of that. From her. From Cersei, no, Cersei, yeah.
Littlefinger.
Yeah, like the finger and the spider got him.
Yes, hook, line, and sinker.
Yep.
But with her, like, yes, he was calling her out, but at the same time, like, if he was savvy at all, he would have played along at least. But instead, he was like, fuck you.
That was truly things in that show would have went so much better if the Starks just politicked a little.
Yeah.
If they played the game a little, it would be all, like, spoilers aside, it would have been a very different, very different ending.
Well, one thing that I love doing in the show is just pinpointing like parts in the show. Like you can obviously say like, "Oh, what if," like in big major moments, but I'm trying to like make like, okay, these teeny tiny moments where they decide to just slip up a little. Would this have made a whole difference later on? For example, like in one of these two episodes, Littlefinger tells Ned not to go and talk to John Aaron's squire. She's like, no, 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 you're being watched. They'll know you're on to them if you send your servant. But the servant is turned aside, saying, I'm only going to talk to the hand. I won't talk to someone who's not even a knight. What if it was Ned that would have been? What would have he have told Ned? Like, what would he have learned? Would he have learned more about who's actually involved in killing John Aaron? Because right when the Lannisters discovered, like, oh, they're after him, that's when Gregor Clegane killed the guy on accident.
Yeah, I think it just really comes down to such interesting. We haven't gotten there yet, but Ned's line had to happen for the show to move on.
Yes,
because the type of character he was, it
didn't work in the show.
Yeah, he moved once again. I don't think his character got covered well in the show either compared to how he actually was.
Yes,
because once again, that's a deeply flawed person as well. Like they show honor in this like very truthful person in the show, and I get why for the storytelling purposes. And you're almost cheering for him because you're like, oh, he doesn't fall for this or this.
Well, and something, and I agree, and I want to build on to that. In the books, Ned is so much more of a broken man than we really understand because he idolized his brother who was killed by the Mad King. He loved his sister who was kidnapped by Rhaegar. And it doesn't really do that great of a job of explaining this, but Benjen Stark, his youngest brother who's at the wall, blames Ned for everything that has gone on. And like, even though they've made up, he still has a level of resentment towards Ned. So Ned is just sitting there feeling rejected. He wasn't supposed to marry Catelyn. He wasn't supposed to get Winterfell. He wasn't supposed to be like leading a rebellion against the king. And like, you see this in the book where he's having flashbacks of thinking of all the promises he's made and all these promises he's expected to keep, and it's like haunting him. And so, and again, like it's hard to do in this level of a show, but he's a broken man who's trying to do the best job that he can because he was taught honor is what's most important above all things, but he's not even able to do that.
Yeah, and I think that character is much more interesting. But once again, TV show, like, not going to come across, especially in a timely manner that makes the plot entertaining.
Yes.
And so the speed of the show, that's the one thing I was thinking when I think of the show, is the plot was at the perfect speed. The characters didn't have time to properly develop. And one thing with Game of Thrones, I will say that was really interesting. I think everybody after the first season knew what they had.
Yes.
They knew what the show was, and they were really, which once again, give them credit. When has someone ever tried to capitalize so hard off of something and kept it great for so long? Like
Marvel.
and then
it collapsed.
But they really like were rushing these seasons out.
Yeah.
And I mean, they did a great job on a lot of them, but like you can see it towards the end, like the actual director, it really got to them and they were really rushing. But like, yeah, after that first season, they knew they had magic, and they really like spinoffs at this point in time would have made more sense than just plowing. And obviously when you have youth actors and like things like that, but I feel like there was definitely like they could have done this in a much different way. They could have done season 1, season 2, done a couple spin-off like shorts, like, you know, even 4 to 6 episode series of the rebellion, of this. Like this could have been done in such a storytelling way that would have been fucking interesting.
I agree, and I'd love to live in that timeline.
Oh, that timeline would be awesome.
That would be a great timeline to be in. But I also do understand, like, they are very limited on what they're actually able to do because,
For sure.
I mean, like you mentioned, like child actors, like,
Oh yeah, there's logistics there. There's real logistics there. But yeah, it's like perfect world.
oh, and that's the thing that I love about this world is there's so much lore to cover. Like in all reality, we only cover about half of the world, even in the books that is going on. There's entire continents not even like brought up. There's so much going on. Like there's even with the legendary land of Valyria, which is where the Targaryens came from, like there's so much mystery, so much that they can do. And like essentially Valyria was the Rome of Westeros. And there's so much mystery on how it's, well, I mean, like not necessarily mystery, but there's so much like
To be said.
there's so much to be said and there's so much to just cover. But I also, again, I think that they just need to like accept the fact that they're like, I won't say it anymore. Anime. Game of Thrones.
Where do we always come back to?
It always comes back to anime. Now, because we're getting close to the end here, and I feel like we've got at least a decent amount of information on some of the main houses at this point. If you were in this world, and I'm not saying a commoner because just being a commoner would suck in general, but if you were to live as either a minor lord or a knight of the 7 main houses, that being Stark, Lannister, Baratheon, Tyrell, Dorne, what other ones are there? Greyjoys.
Yep.
Like, which one would you want to be living in their kingdom?
It's a great question. I would have to say probably the Tyrells. I'm forgetting the one that has the island later in the show.
The Greyjoys?
No, not those islands. But the ones that kidnapped the Lannisters.
Is it the Tyrells?
No.
Not the Tyrells. The Dorne. It's
The Dorne. I could be there.
Dorne would be sick.
Then they look like that's like a Hispanic island. Those are beaners.
Well, in the books, it's hilarious because they talk about how Dorne eats spicy food, and the women, they're just as spicy as their spicy food.
I think I know where I belong.
And the Tyrells and Martells. Martell is the family in Dorne. Dorne is like the area.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, I think low key either
The
like
Martells is probably where now I'm thinking about it, I'd probably really go there. With what I know now.
Well,
because it's like the Lannisters would be sick, but you're always fighting for your life.
Yeah.
Who wants to be a Stark? I wouldn't want to live in Winterfell.
That's the thing. Like people that say that they'd be with the Starks, I'm like, okay, go live in Wyoming then. Like that's
it's really not. There's really nothing there. Like up until this all happened, they literally just were like potato farming.
Well, in the book they talk about the North, like the area that they're over is as large as the 6 other kingdoms combined.
Who would honestly? I'm going to go on that. Who would ever want to be a part of the Greyjoys is weird.
Well, if whoever wants to be part of the Greyjoys, they have some interesting fetishes. I'll just say that.
That's what I'm saying. Same with the Lannisters. Gosh, who else is there? Yeah, I really think I'm going to go with the Dorne and the Martells. The Tyrell family would be fun because it's like they're like the Lannisters without all the like corruption. It seems like
they're the Lannisters, but they're allies. But they're racist towards the brown people to the south. Like
can't all be winning.
But
yeah,
I
don't know. Maybe Targaryens if I'm going back far enough.
The problem with the Targaryens too is they're always fighting amongst themselves as well because there always is like a child that's like, oh, I should be king, and they start an uprising.
But at least I would have that dragon blood in.
Hey, you got that dragon blood.
That's what I'm saying. That dragon blood. That's what I'm thinking would be sick. So yeah, I guess those would be my like hot picks there. Targaryen, if I was like just dragon blood, but probably the Dorns.
But also the fits that they have down in Dorne.
That's what I'm saying. Nothing. And they went to the island. There was like peaceful.
Yeah. They had the magnificent gardens.
Yeah.
They all were just chilling.
Crazy bitches.
Love me a crazy bitch. But is there anything else that we want to cover in these 2 episodes? Again, I feel like these first few episodes are just build up, but we can tell the build up is there and it's going to be a good payoff. They're cooking.
Yeah, I think that's really where this is like when you hit the Mario Kart little speed up arrow. Like it's like, oh, okay, this is what we're speeding up now. Things really catch a pace. No, I don't really have anything to add. I think the biggest thing with these next with 3 and 4 is they're just they really caught their win. It was interesting to watch.
Yeah.
This is when it gets good to watch.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in for our episode coverage of 3 and 4, which is Lord Snow and Cripples, Bastards, and Broken Things. We'll be back next week to talk about The Wolf and the Lion and The Golden Crown. Until then, like, share, subscribe, share it with your mom, share it with a friend, share it with a girlfriend, share it with your incestual lover if you're in
Don't watch the show if you have one.
We don't take kindly to you around these parts.
Go back where you came from. Sweet home Alabama.
On that note...
That's all for this week's Dragon Lore. Takes cold and hot, spread shore to shore. Enjoyed yourself? Please join the squad. Follow on social media at Big Liz Pod. And one quick reminder before you go, to rate, review, and share the show. Thank you for listening. It means a lot. See you next week, same time, same spot.